One question I receive most is, if I move to Ireland with my family, how does childcare work? Or maybe if you just had a baby and you are wondering, when can my child start crèche? When does the government start helping with childcare costs? When is preschool free? And when do children finally start school without paying childcare fees? This concern is genuine because I've actually been in that state before. When I first came to Ireland, I had to learn how the system worked because it's very different from many African countries or many Asian countries. Okay, abroad it's usually different from your own home. And I've also been in the States after I actually had a baby. I was also wondering about the whole crèche and the whole system with childcare. In today's video, I'll explain everything from the day your baby is born until they start primary school. By the end of the video, you will be able to understand the childcare journey in Ireland and how to plan your finances. So if you think this video is for you, then remember to stay tuned and go nowhere. So let's take it from birth to about 6 months. When your baby is born, most parents stay home for a while using maternity leave, and then the fathers also take paternity leave or parents leave depending on what they are entitled to. This video is not about leave, so I'm not going to explain the entire leave system. Okay, many people ask, can I send my baby to crèche immediately after birth? In practice, most crèches don't accept newborn babies. Many begin taking babies from around 6 months of age, although some providers may have different age policies. If you are planning to return to work, start researching childcare early because waiting list is long, very, very long. I'm not exaggerating. Let's talk about crèche. If you hear the word crèche a lot in Ireland or some countries, a crèche is simply what many countries call a daycare or childcare center. Children are looked after by trained childcare staff while parents are at work or studying. Depending on the crèche, children may receive breakfast, snacks, lunch, nap time, indoor and outdoor play, early learning activities, arts and crafts, music, story time, all depending on the curriculum of that crèche. So the aim isn't only to babysit your children. It is to help them learn, socialize, and develop important skills before school. Now let's look at how much does childcare cost. This is one of the biggest surprises for many new immigrants or many parents. Childcare in Ireland can be expensive, like many other countries. The amount depends on where you live, how many hours your child attends, whether it is full-time or part-time, the childcare provider. This is probably one of the biggest shocks for many families moving to Ireland. Childcare in Ireland is one of the largest monthly expenses for parents with young children. So how much does it actually cost? Let's break it down, okay? So when you talk about full-time crèche, like 5 days a week, depending on where you live, a full-time crèche place typically costs like 180 euros, 300 euros per week before subsidies. That's roughly 800 to 1,300 per month. Although in some areas such as Dublin, premium crèches can cost 1,200 to 1,800 per month before the government supports. So it's before that. So part-time crèche. If your child only attends a few morning or afternoon each week, you might pay around 80 to 180 per week, depending on the number of hours and the childcare provider. Let's talk about childminder. Some parents choose a registered childminder instead of a crèche. Costs vary, and many charge around 6 to 10 euros per hour, depending on the location and experience. This can be a flexible option if you work shifts, okay? Just that they might not get the same type of learning if they go to the crèche. So now let's talk about the government help. That's the National Childcare Scheme, the NCS. The good news is that the Irish government helps many families with childcare costs through the National Childcare Scheme, often called the NCS. Think of it like this. Instead of parents paying the full childcare fee, the government pays part of the cost directly to the childcare provider if you qualify. There are generally two types of supports. The first one is the universal subsidy. Most eligible families can receive a universal subsidy for children from about 6 months until age 15. Provided the child attends a registered childcare provider. And then we have the income assessed subsidy. Families on lower income may qualify for additional support. So the lower your household income, the higher the subsidy you may receive, okay, depending on your circumstance. Now here is the good news. Many parents don't actually pay the full price because Ireland has the National Childcare Scheme. Imagine your crèche charges €250 per week, depending on your family's income and the subsidy you qualify for. You might end up paying much less. Some families save hundreds of euros every month because of the NCS. The amount varies from family to family, so it's worth applying to see what support you are entitled to. Before assuming childcare is unaffordable, check the supports you are entitled to first. But remember, there is a means test depending on your income. So now let's talk about free preschool. One of the best supports available is the Early Childhood Care and Education Program, often called the ECCE. This is Ireland's free preschool program. So children usually become eligible once they are 2 years and 18 months old, depending on the enrollment date. The program provides 2 years of free preschool before primary school. Typically, children attend for about 3 hours a day, that's 5 days a week, during the preschool age. Now here is something important to understand. The government is paying for those preschool hours. If your child stays longer than the free ECC hours that the government has actually provided, you may still have to pay for extra hours. Although the National Childcare Scheme may help reduce the cost if you are eligible. So now let's talk about when does my child start primary school. So after preschool comes primary school. Most children start junior infants when they are about 4 to 5 years old, although compulsory education begins at 6. Junior infant is the first year of primary school. Then they move to senior infants before progressing through the first class, second class, and so on. By this age, your child is attending school instead of crèche during normal hours. However, there are still some costs you should budget for, such as school uniform, approximately like 100 to 300 euros, depending on the number of children you have. And then school shoes around 50 to 100 euros, and the type of brand that you want. Looking at school bags, around 30 euro to 80 euros. We have books and stationery, depending on the school and also available supports. Okay, that could go up to like 150 euro. All depends on the school. Some schools also pay for breakfast clubs and after school care if both parents work. So do parents stop paying? This is another common question. The answer is parents do not pay tuition fee for children attending public primary and secondary schools in Ireland. However, it doesn't mean that everything is free, just as I stated earlier on. Parents may be paying things like school uniform, books, depending on the school and also available schemes, school tours, lunch, voluntary contributions, after school care, and also clubs. Like my kids pay approximately 40 euro for the whole year, which is very, very affordable. You can actually use their child care support to actually pay all those things. So while education itself is publicly funded, it's still wise to budget for these additional costs, and they are just minor, nothing really, significant in terms of cost. Another support many families receive is child benefit. If you are eligible, the government pays a monthly amount for each qualifying child to help with the cost of raising them. So this is separate from childcare subsidies. It is designed to support families with everyday expenses. And then eligibility depends on your circumstance. Make sure to check the current rules. If you have a child, or just one child, twins, and also triplets, it all differs. So you can just read more about it on citizenship information. My advice to immigrant families: if you are planning to move to Ireland with children or hoping to start a family here are a few practical tips. First, join Crèche waiting list as early as possible. If you're a new mother, still pregnant, maybe you might want to have your child on the list. Yes, that's early because the list is very, very long. Second, check if the childcare provider is registered for the National Childcare Scheme and also the ECCE program. And then third, include the childcare cost in your financial planning before you move. Or if you're here, you should start, factoring that into your whole budget. Many people calculate salary but forget one of the biggest expenses a young family may face. Finally, don't be afraid to ask questions. Every family situation is different, and there are organizations that can help explain what support you are entitled to. So a bit of recap in regards to this video. Babies often start crèche from around 6 months. The government helps many families through the National Childcare Scheme, and children can receive 2 years of free preschool through the ECCE program before starting primary school. Most children begin primary school around 4 to 5 years old. Public primary education does not charge tuition fee, but families should still budget for school-related expenses as mentioned in this video. So if you're already raising a child in Ireland, I would love to hear about your expenses and also your experience. What advice would you give a new family moving here or already in Ireland? And if you have more questions about life in Ireland, nursing, immigration, raising a family abroad, don't forget to subscribe and also hit the like button. Drop a comment for me and I'll definitely attend to that. See you all soon on my next video. Bye.